So can you share your journey and what inspired you to you have found Pop-Up Housing Innovation NGO and also the Coral State?
Yeah, so actually I did my engineering. I was an aerospace engineer. I worked in the corporate world for almost 10 years with Honeywell and Infosys. But I was always drawn to the social sector. So I used to do a lot of volunteering, social work. I was connected to a lot of social organizations. Even in my corporate company, I was involved with a lot of TSR work. So I also come from a background in real estate construction. So I've been looking at the built environment very closely. My grandfather was a class 1 PWD contractor and my father. So, my childhood grew around, buildings and, site offices and site work, labor quarters, housing. And my father started a few hostels, like a paying guest accommodation in Bangalore in the year 2000. So in one of our properties. So that's how I was also seeing this kind of migrants and students, rental housing. So that also kind of happening. And after 10 years in corporate, I thought, then I also got interested in alternate architecture. Though I didn't study architecture or civil, I was in
very interesting.
But I think just my family background in construction, real estate, and me around there and connected to the social sector, I thought, let me just explore sustainability, alternate architecture, rental housing, just looking at those things. And I, scaled up my family business a bit. So we started a couple of more hostels in Mysore and another brand in Bangalore, Coral State. So that's the family business, conventional brick and mortar, traditional rental housing that I'm also part of. But otherwise, I was more of a housing innovator. I started spending a lot of time with experts in the housing sector. I did a 1-month workshop in natural building and then with local materials, building with whatever is available. And then one of my mentors from the US, he builds in Burning Man Festival. It's like a 3-month or a 2-month pop-up festival in the desert in US. So he was the building manager there, and they were exploring building with industrial materials. So they were using a lot of pallet tracking, warehousing structures to build spaces for people, adapting warehousing for habitable spaces, right? Creating these kind of. And he had come down to Bangalore and he built with these structures. He did a co-working art space in Bangalore, and I was fascinated. I met him in 2009-10, and I was telling him about my passion in housing and rental housing, and he said, "See, this is an interesting structure that I'm doing," and we spent a lot of time. And I assisted him, 3-4 years. We were doing a few installations projects in farms around Bangalore, understanding the materials. And then in Kumbh Mela in 2015, I proposed multi-level portable structure with these pallet racks, warehousing, shelving racks for people. And this was selected by MIT as one of the top 10 innovative projects. We went ahead and built the first multi-level portable structure in Kumbh Mela in 2015. Okay. So that was in Nasik.
In Nasik, okay.
So that was where pop-up housing actually started. And the MIT scientists were always encouraging us, we'll have to look at Burning Man Festival as Kumbh Mela as these kind of, like petri dish, like an experiment lab, and try to innovate and see what problems we can solve for urbanizing cities or for, IT. So that was when I was actually looking at, not just for events or not just for disasters, we'll have to look at innovating. Can we look at really innovating for the mid to long term? Can we really look at coming up with innovations which are more solving problems day in, day out? Then I started looking at, cities as a year-round Kumbh Mela, millions of people coming into cities and going. I started looking at cities as a year-round disaster. People are, there's no traffic, is so many problems, housing is a problem, migration is a challenge. So I really started looking at cities as, extending these temporary events of Kumbh Mela and Burning Man to a year-round kind of a lab. And I said, what can we do in cities? That's when pop-up housing started, innovation. And I started looking and exploring, doing a lot of R&D, exploring different modular framing systems, a lot of industrial materials, which I think because the housing industry has not really innovated. They've been very slow because there's a psychological component to it. There's an emotional component to it. People are more attached to the land more than the housing. Housing is not a housing problem, it's a land problem. So I kind of realized all these hard truths, and it's very difficult to really innovate where people's emotions are attached and people are looking at it as an asset for generations, not just, one-time temporary period. So, but if you look at the warehousing industry or the logistics industry, similar with environment, they had no emotions. There was no psychology involved. They just wanted to see how do we optimize space? How can we, build maximum on the given footprint? And they did a lot of innovations in structure, and they have really come up with amazing modular, standardized, off-the-shelf, globally available reliable, globally, structurally load-bearing to carry goods, right? I was thinking, why can't we use some of these technology and these components and readapt it, repurpose it for habitable spaces, for people, customize it for habit. And I started looking at other materials in the industrial construction space, which is modular, which is prefab, which is readily available, which is off the shelf, which has a recycle value, which can be reused. These were some of the qualities I was looking at. Because I was not an architect, I was not a civil engineer, right? So I was really looking at it as a layman. How can you make it simple for a layman to build with what is already out there? So then I started exploring other modular framing systems, looking at different materials, aluminum beams, steel sections, and slotted angle frames, pallet racks.
Sorry to interrupt, but in this scenario, when you say industry, is it the industrial waste that you are using in order to build these structures? Or what
there are two components to it. One is the industrial structure itself, which is not an industrial waste. They have optimized the physical structure, the columns and the beams, the joinery. They made
you dismantle that and use.
Dismantle that. Yeah, and use it. And then the walling and all that, again, we're using post-plastic board. So, it is really both of them. And then another thing was, I was looking at small-scale intervention. Trying to think of a multi-story big intervention. I realized that it needs a lot of resources, a lot of permits, a lot of land, and there's a lot of bottlenecks. So can we look at small change, micro intervention? That's when I started looking at smaller modular industrial frames, the solid angle regular racks. It's available in every other bookstore, libraries, every other home in the middle class have it for storage. So I said these are very modular, very sturdy. We can kind of definitely adapt it to make structures for any kind of infrastructure. It could be for people, it could be for even agriculture, like greenhouses. I've done a few greenhouses with them. And it takes away the complexity of fabrication, right? Like there's no welding involved, there's no high skill involved, there's no electricity. It's all nuts and bolts. It's like a Lego framework, right? It just assembles and it's like a kit of parts. So I started tinkering with it on unused spaces on rooftops and what problems can this really solve? Then I kind of started looking at unused rooftops and backyards and empty lots, and I started doing a lot of projects.
You were experimenting, utilizing small spaces. Coming to this point, when you started this, like when you got this thought and all, what are the challenges that you have faced in doing such projects, and how did you overcome?
So one was, it was a very hard sell for me to convince people to go with this because people were looking at brick-and-mortar construction. People were looking at even like fabrication, welding as another option. So we were literally competing with fabricators, right? And people wanted something more sturdy. They wanted something like, even though this is sturdy, they wanted it to be a pakka joint. They said, this is temporary people, So they really took a mind shift. They said, okay, let's not convince people to use this as their primary dwellings, but maybe there is an application for secondary space, for add-on space.
Like farmhouses and all of that.
For extension.
Like empty pockets behind their homes or something like that.
Or small extensions for, add-on spaces, secondary spaces, or even for rental housing, right? Maybe somebody is staying there for a few months or a year on transit, they don't really mind. They don't bother about how deep the foundation is, how deep the wall is. They just want a door that can be locked. They want lights. They want electricity. They want the,
a house or a structure, what is
so basically sheltering in them from the elements. So I realized that there are these few use cases, and in fact, not just for shelter, there were a lot of applications I came across, including for classrooms. I did a lot of projects for government classrooms, building classrooms, on their rooftops or extensions. Then I did a lot of community spaces, a lot of work in, furniture. With the same racks, we did bunk beds for kids. We did tables. We did community centers.
That's interesting.
And we did shops, street shops. We're looking at retrofitting, push carts, street push carts. So there's a lot of anything to do with the built environment. I think we can definitely fit in and create a solution or adapt it. But then I was also looking at what is it that we can also do, which is instead of doing a lot of custom projects, can we kind of look at it as a product? Can we kind of make it more standardized? And can we look at solving one pain problem which can replicate, go from 0 to 1 and 1 to 100, right? Otherwise, I will just be like every other contractor or fabricator doing custom projects here and there, going to site, taking measurements, customizing it, building it. It's not very scalable.
Correct. So when you say you can a prototype what you are building out there, so approximately costing part approx value. So how much for individual if someone wants to do it?
So, one house, like one room, like 10 feet by 15 feet. Right now we are doing around 5 units. So basic expenses and what we calculated, like each unit is coming up to around 1 lakh. Plus or minus, but so around 1 lakh for one housing unit with the toilet, 10 feet by feet, one room, one housing unit like a studio is coming up to 1 lakh.
So what impact have your innovations on communities that you're serving?
So one is, I think, the built environment is a lot of people are innovating or, really focusing on the upper top of the pyramid, right? There's a lot of material interior innovations coming in, but they're only catering to the top of the pyramid. There are very few people who are innovating for the bottom of it. So I really want to kind of come up with a solution for the bottom of the pyramid and really enable people to see that, okay, it's so simple that, they can get inspired and maybe, they do it themselves. It's like a DIY housing. And basically, catering to the built environment and infrastructure needs in the low-income communities. It could be for education. It could be for housing. Yeah. So education, housing, and health. Yeah. So these are main areas that I think we can focus on.
Very nice. Thank you. So what are the key lessons that you have learned as a leader in the social housing sector?
I think, humility. When I've gone and spent a lot of time in these low-income communities in slums, we've built a lot of slum housing. I worked with Selco Foundation. I was the program manager of the built environment in Selco Foundation. So I actually won a design competition. I won a couple of design competitions.
Wow, congratulations.
Jagriti Yatra, then the Kumbh Mela MIT that happened after that, Jagriti Yatra. Then Selco Foundation itself had a design challenge to design a sustainable solar-powered street shop, which we won. And we went ahead and built it. And I said, see, I really am working, I'm innovating. I want to get access to these communities. You guys are already working in a lot of slums and low-income communities. I'd love to work with you and see how we can do more projects. So I was with them for almost 2 years. We did a lot of projects in the slums in Bangalore and Karnataka. And I used to spend a lot of time in these slum homes and measure the temperature, think of small solutions, interventions, replace their tarpaulin sheets with these semi-permanent housing. And I realized that it was not that we were doing them a favor. It was really that, they were opening up their doors and hearts for us to come in and giving us an opportunity to see what we can do.
That's really wonderful.
Yeah, so it was a very humbling experience, and to know that, everybody is human. I think different people have different opportunities. And in fact, if you look at it, they are solving the urban problems. Like, they are the ones who are building our roads. They are the ones who are building they are cleaning our homes. They are taking care of the drainage, all that waste management. And, it really got me to say that we should do something for them and really see how we can improve their lives.
That's wonderful.
Yeah.
Very noble thought.
Thank you.
Yeah. Hi, Sampat. This is Priyadarshini.
Hi, Priyadarshini.
Yeah, this is working as a client relationship manager. So happy to see all your experience you have been sharing to us. Happy for that. So we'll go with the other question.
Yeah.
So can you share some examples of how collaborations and partnerships have played a role in your success?
Yeah, it's all about collaboration and partnerships because, at the end of the day, space is the most challenged, most litigated kind of land is the most challenged, most dedicated resource. It's very limited. You can create every other thing, but land you cannot create. You can print notes, you can make babies, but you cannot really create land. So that's the biggest challenge. So I think that's where you need a lot of collaboration and partnership. So, people who have space, they may not be wanting to do something for the next 5-10 years or, it's unused space. So, a lot of times we kind of collaborate and partner with a small household and talk to them, ask them. Sometimes we get a no. We say, no, we want our terrace space to dry our clothes. We want our terrace space to dry these. Then there is a need for rental housing. You can earn extra money. Some people will say no because their privacy is privacy. You need to respect that.
Yes.
But a lot of times people also have spaces where they are maybe are looking to earn some extra income, or they are looking at their own space there, or they have a second property where they've already given it out for rent, or it's a commercial. And they are okay there for us to use the unused spaces. So a lot of times we communicate, we talk, we get access to space, then we, and the most important part is we always work with local community. So we find a local carpenter, we find a local mason, we find a local electrician, a local plumber. So we always try to source any materials locally and build that local ecosystem. And we also engage the local lady of the house to be the property manager, right? He will take care of the house, make sure that the people are paying the rent. Like, we're using an app to do all the property management and rent.
Okay.
But, we need somebody to be there in the property. So the lady of the house, we're giving her the livelihood, the rental income part of it.
That's
So give her the responsibility, take care of the cleanliness, the housekeeping, the hygiene of the house. And we also create employment by engaging a local cleaner, housekeeper to come and do the cleaning. So we are looking at it as housing as a service, right? We're building, also making it as a service.
right. And very interesting. So may I know what's the app that you are using for such?
It's an app. It's called Rent OK. Basically, I'm using this app for my own other family business properties, which we have, and we are paying guest hostel accommodations for students and working professionals. So I'm using this same app. If you're doing more projects in the low-income communities, in slums, will be doing. And because, this app is slightly more expensive, they charge like 30 rupees per bed per month.
To discuss potential areas of collaboration, such as mentoring, coaching, knowledge sharing, or social franchise.
You're talking between us, right?
Yes.
Yeah, so, I was very curious about this franchising, social franchising. I read a little bit about it. I saw a few videos of micro franchising, social franchising. I was very impressed because I remember I did a few programs on social entrepreneurship by Stuart Hart, Fred Rose, and then in Bangalore there's one, Jacob, he has, they have a social enterprise and they supply, I've also followed this person, the author of not Fortune in the bottom of the Business Solutions to Poverty.
What's the full name of Mr. Jacob?
Jacob Matthew.
Okay,
Jacob Matthew. And so I've been following this space quite a bit, social entrepreneurship, and getting to these people. So he, with this other guy who authored this book, Business Solution to Poverty, he passed away 2 years ago. I'm not getting his name. So in the US, he was 85. He's called the father of social entrepreneurship or something like that. So they created something in Orissa, providing water filters in these villages. So they were partnering with shops and doing like a partnership model, but it was not necessarily a social franchisee, but a similar model. I think they were just partnering with shops in villages, setting up their water filtration unit, and they were selling water to the villagers, filtered water. So, I was just trying to understand a little bit more about social franchising and micro franchising, and I feel the rental housing on unused rooftops in slums can be an interesting opportunity for us to explore a social franchising model. So, yeah.
And to add more to it, the Academy of Social Franchising, basically what we are trying to do is everyone is doing in their own field. For example, we are into this right? So in Academy, we are connecting people from catering to all the sectors of the economy. Say suppose we heal that includes even all the elements of linker what is required. Apart the education, then technology, then housing. So it includes everything. In this academy, we will be having different kind of people providing different kind of solutions. So some come in for some come in for knowledge sharing, and they want to just share their knowledge and in their respective field. So suppose if you are looking for the social franchising, so we will be, first thing one is we will be helping to scale up your brand.
Yeah.
Correct?
Yeah.
So you need different kind of stakeholders. So we will be able to provide the connect for your growth of business through our Academy of Social Franchise. That is what we are looking at in order to connect people from different sectors. So
definitely, that's great. And I think another challenge is financing, access to finance. How do we kind of create models for financial sustainability? How do we,
we can explore different avenues.
How do we do more? Yeah, because it's very early stage. Though I've been innovating on this, getting this business model, social model of rental housing on rooftops, making it like a scalable model. We need to do more pilots in low-income communities in slums, test it. So initial pilots, we need to fund them. So right now I'm just like doing it from my own pocket, right? So I think
we can definitely, as you said initially about the CSR grants and CSR funding, we can definitely work even.
How do we make it scalable and all of those things?
Yes.
And how do we make the right?
Academy is trying to help you all with that.
How does your expertise in low-cost modular housing can contribute to upcoming social franchise projects?
Yeah, as I said, I think Pop-Up Rooms, this brand has a lot of potential to scale. Social franchising could be one way in which it can definitely scale, especially in low-income communities. If we can empower these women who have unused rooftops, and even if they don't give us the full rooftop, even if we can just add one room there, and if they can get additional rental income, and then if that can solve the rental housing. In maybe a lot of rural farm areas, it can become like an Airbnb as well. It can become like a guest room. So people can earn livelihoods. It can solve the housing needs, and I think that can scale. And if we have it in a community cluster, we can even appoint like a manager in that community who can help us identify more rooftops. We can incentivize them for finding more spaces. We can have somebody who can be a local cook, like a cloud kitchen, provide food.
Definitely, yes, we can do that.
Lots of opportunities that can come up, and that will definitely add to the livelihoods and model. But we can definitely solve the problem with social.
Absolutely. It's very interesting to hear your inputs on this kind of housing in semi-urban and rural areas. We would definitely look forward for the collaborations ahead, and we can see how we can take it forward in days to come. after having discussions even with Mr. Rao.
Sure, looking forward to it. Thank you so much for reaching out. I was so happy that sir reached out to me and explored this model.
Yeah, it's really wonderful. As I told you earlier, there are so many people doing in different areas, different places. Just like creating a platform so that everyone can take existence and scale their individual brand.
Great. Looking forward to your support because I think I'm just getting started and it's a great opportunity for us to do something very meaningful.
And I'd like to also inform you that we'll be sharing your video as well after once the editing everything is done.
Okay.
Thank you so much, Sampat, for your time, and it was a pleasure to have you.